coming at you with a beer review, and today I'm saying, what the fluff? That's right, that's what we got today. What the fluff? It's from Baerlic Brewing out of Portland, Oregon. They do some very interesting beers. This is going to be a hazy, crazy, juicy, Lucy Northwest Hazy IPA. Try saying that again. That's 6.6% ABV. They made this using a special yeast. That's right. They say Imperial Juice yeast, which, if you know the lingo, that means 838 juice yeast from Imperial Organic yeast. There's some inside jokes there, but that's a whole nother story. They use premium two-row. They use Y yeast on this. They use nugget, and they use Centennial hops. Centennial hops? WTF! Centennial hops. You know how I feel about those Centennial hops. But I hear it's a good beer now. This is version 7.0. That's right. WTF, or What the Fluff 7.0. They change this up a little bit each year. It'll be interesting to see what it's like this year. And this year I'm bringing it to you. Let's get her cracked open. All right, here we go. This is, that's got that kind of orangey, whatever color, makes me always think of grapefruit for some reason. It just does. Once I see that, it has this slight pink tinge in the orange there with a kind of a thin one-finger head on it, but it definitely is hazy, but it's all about the nose and taste. So let's dive in with the nose first. Woo, I gave it a whirl with my hand on the top to hold in some of those aromas, and it kind of came off effervescent in the nose a little bit. It was kind of interesting, kind of juicy. I definitely got some grapefruit. I got some orangish type qualities. Now again, this is Nugget and Centennial, and Centennial is definitely going to bring in that grapefruit, northwesty, and lemon type characters usually, right, with these northwest ones, but this one can also bring in some dank qualities, and I think I got a little bit of that pine, or more on the dank side than the pine actually. Okay, so it's interesting. So two-row and wheat, it was just funny. I was just about to say, it smells like it has wheat on it, but I just said that earlier, didn't I? But what's really interesting about this is it's two-row and wheat and a hazy IPA. They didn't say what kind of wheat, whether it was flaked wheat or what they did with this. Wheat will bring on a hazy character. I'm betting they just went with a malt on this one. That's kind of different, but it does have a nice juicy quality. It's not so much a tropical, you could almost imagine that if you want to, but it's more just a kind of a fruity and more of a citrus type quality going on with this. There's a light herbal quality, and I know that you can get that from both of those hops. More than that's really hard. It's hard for me to describe more. I'm going to take one more sniff and then we're going to go for it. All right, so this time I'm picking up a little bit of some orange and almost a tangelo. Not something I expect from either of those hops, and I do get like a mild grapefruit as well. But it's kind of a mix of those citrus type qualities on there. I love what the 838 juice does with these hops. It really brightens up those hop characters, which is fun. So we're going to jump in. Cheers. This is good. It's very mild. It's very easy drinking. It's very smooth. And I'm hanging in because I want to see what it does to my palate as it sits there, because I know there's Centennial in there. And I want to see what happens here. Okay, as I sit on it a little bit, it's pulling in a little bit of the bitter side, a light dankness to it, not a whole lot. Even more faint, but I almost feel like I get a little bit of a, I want to be specific. It's not a zest. It's not a grapefruit zest. It's more like a dull grapefruit rind. I want to say it's more like the inside white part of the grapefruit peel. It's because it's kind of that mild, it's that doughy taste almost, if you will, that white part of the grapefruit. It's very interesting. And the dank quality is very, very light. I almost felt like I got, for a moment there, might sound off, but I almost felt like I got a light nutty quality off of it. And that's not something I would expect, but I think that's more that funny part of the orange peel coming in and a few herbal characters that kick in on this. It's really smooth, actually. It's super easy drinking. This is not a super bright hop in your face with mango and pineapples and that kind of a beer, because these are I don't know where Nugget comes from, but it makes me think of a Northwest hop. It might be from here. I'd have to look up its parentage. But we know that, of course, that Centennial comes from the local area. All right, so this is interesting. It's not bad, and when I look at that malt bill, that means the grains that you put into this, with just having 2-row and wheat going into it, I didn't expect it to taste as much like a New England IPA style, that hazy style, as it does. Now I know it has a lot to do with that yeast. That yeast brings in that quality. It's what I like to use myself, to be honest. That's why I know all about it. It's one of my favorite yeasts, and it's much like putting in London Ale 3 from Y yeast. It's a good yeast to use, both of those. But the hops are also throwing me. So you got that malt bill, the grains, and then the hops when you're using Nugget and Centennial, neither of which I think of for hazy IPAs. I think of bringing in Mosaic or Galaxy or any kind of a, really tropical, crazy, Simcoe, Citra, things like that are going to be more fun, and there's a whole list to go on. But they chose more herbal qualities and grapefruity qualities and citrus and lemon type quality hops to go in this, which is not what you normally expect when you go to your hazy IPAs. But it actually plays off very well. It's a nice tasting beer. So I'm going to take just a moment. I'm going to try to come up with numbers, and I'll come back. All right, I got to stay true to form. I'm enjoying it. It's a good beer. I hate being so critical. I really do. I like giving good scores to beer, but it's not falling in again to that New England IPA style. And when you say hazy, once you say that, I'm sorry, you've gone there. You took that step. And I don't care if they want to try to call it a Northwest hazy IPA. They didn't originate in the Northwest. Certainly not in Oregon or Washington, not in Idaho for sure. They're not trying to compare themselves to those styles, and yet that's exactly what they're doing because it's a hazy IPA. And so I've got to rate it in style against those types of beers, and there are just so many fantastic beers that originally came from the East Coast, and others that are just wonderful on the West Coast as well. So I can't give it a big, huge score in that style. It's in that theme, but it doesn't quite hit it. I've had several like that recently. Right, Bob? Okay, so the deal is, here's the dealio. It's not going to get a high score for me. And then they toss in Centennial, and they don't give me any tropical or anything like that. They just don't give me a whole lot to work. This one's going down, down, down to a 79 for a New England IPA style. I'm sorry. It's just, that's a C+. And I'm a very generous grader. I just truly believe that. I think that my beer in there is probably an 89, 10 points higher. And I've heard people say it's better. But at any rate, this is a 79 in terms of style. Let me think about overall. Okay, so I just filled my glass for the rest of it. Because beer reviewers, unlike wine tasters, we don't spit. That's right. We still consume it. Unless, well, it's got to be really bad. It's got to be infected. So, and sometimes those are good too. Anyway, yes, they are. Sometimes they are. So, at any rate, in terms of overall, we've got the spy cams watching the review to see what I'm thinking. They're reporting directly to Baerlic. It happens. What can I tell you? So now that they're farther out and they can't pick up this transmission, I can tell you this is an 83 in terms of overall. WTF! That's right, it's What the Fluff 7.0. They've been doing this for a while from Baerlic Brewing out of Portland, Oregon. Actually, it's not a bad beer. I mean, it's very drinkable. 83 is still a dang good beer. I mean, people just understand we are blessed in this period of history with some amazing beers. Go back to my youth. They didn't start coming out with good beers until after about the time I graduated from high school, 1979. That's how old I am. And tell you what, that's a famous period because that's when homebrewing became legal. Cheers to that, right? This is Kevin of Clements Homebrew saying life's too short to drink cheap beer. I don't make cheap beer. I make good beer. And I'll see you on the next beer review.